You found just stories, simple, heartfelt moments from real lives, stories that remind us how connected we all are through love, loss, and hope. Get cozy. The stories are about to begin. Dr. Robert Davis sat at the table in his office, his head in his hands. It felt like this day would never end. 20 years, 2 decades he had dedicated to the work that had become the meaning of his existence. Surgery was his life, its pulse, its breath. From a young age, he cherished the dream of saving human lives. Therefore, when the question arose of choosing a path after school, he unhesitatingly submitted his documents to medical school. The entrance exams were no trouble for Robert. The young man had always been diligent in his studies, and the natural sciences came to him with astonishing ease. The years at the academy flew by in fascinating learning. With an almost mystical obsession, he mastered anatomy, a subject that for most of his classmates was the embodiment of a nightmare. He didn't just study anatomy, he felt it, understood it intuitively. When it was time for his first practical experience, the sight of blood didn't make him faint. On the contrary, he eagerly absorbed every word from his mentors, every gesture. They predicted a brilliant future for him, as few students showed such deep and sincere interest in the medical craft. It seemed that being a doctor for Robert was not just a profession, but a higher calling. And the predictions came true. After his internship, Davis was sent to the regional hospital, a stroke of luck that few graduates experienced. From the very first days, Robert began to live up to the high title of a doctor. He honed his skills, and it soon became clear that this young man's hands were truly golden. The chief physician immediately noted the surgeon's outstanding talent. His colleagues, on the other hand, were openly envious. He wasn't even 30 yet, and he was already performing operations of such complexity. The clinic staff was divided into two camps. Some admired Davis and dreamed of being like him, while others whispered about connections, devilish luck, and other dark forces. But whatever the case, Robert was rapidly moving from victory to victory. He was completely indifferent to what others thought of him. The only thing that mattered was human life. Davis's career steadily climbed upwards. Over 20 years, he saved thousands of lives, working almost without days off or vacations. The surgeon completely forgot about himself, about his personal life. He never managed to start a family. Of all his close relatives, only his mother remained, who had been his support since childhood and did everything for her son to confidently pursue his dream. Of course, there were women in Davis's life, but he couldn't build a lasting relationship with any of them. No one could tolerate his lifestyle, where work always came first. And now, after so many years, his impeccable reputation was under attack for the first time. A patient died on the operating table. This was the first time it had happened in his many years of practice. Everyone understood perfectly well that a medical error was out of the question. Davis's skill had never been doubted. The patient was brought in critical condition. There was almost no chance of saving him. For the medical staff, his death was a natural outcome. Only a miracle could have snatched that man from the clutches of death. Alas, no miracle occurred. No matter how brilliant a surgeon Davis was, he was not God. After the unsuccessful operation, he simply went to his office and locked himself in. He didn't want to see anyone. The deceased's relatives were not yet at the hospital, and the difficult news was yet to come. Robert didn't even know where to start. Usually he saw faces lit up with joy. That expression of boundless happiness gave him strength, the feeling that he, an ordinary person, had entered into battle with death and emerged victorious. But now everything was different. There was a knock on the office door. Robert didn't react immediately. The knocking repeated. Davis reluctantly rose from his desk and went to the door. Behind it stood the chief physician, a stately woman in her early 40s. Dr. Eleanor Black was feared by everyone except Robert. Once this woman had been the love of his life. Back then, she was the most beautiful woman in the clinic, his colleague, basking in the glow of professional fame. Serious and driven, she immediately attracted the surgeon's attention. He fell in love at first sight, although he had always denied the possibility of such a thing. To his surprise, Eleanor responded to his advances, and very soon a passionate romance flared between them, but even she couldn't accept the fact that the man would always put his work before her. After living together for 4 years, Eleanor and Robert broke up. Neither held a grudge against the other. Both understood perfectly well that in their profession, such a choice was often inevitable. The woman remained a loyal friend to Davis. Even after becoming chief physician, she maintained warm feelings for her former lover. But now, there was not a trace of friendliness on her face. "Rob," she said, averting her gaze. "This isn't the time for talking," he replied dully. "A man died on me. I could have saved him, and I failed." Davis's voice trembled. It seemed the man was about to burst into tears. "All right, calm down," Eleanor sharply cut him off. "Nothing can be fixed now, and you know perfectly well that it was too late to save him. It's not your fault. What's the point of engaging in self-recrimination now?" Eleanor locked the office from the inside and sat down on the sofa. Robert sank down beside her and leaned heavily back onto the cushion. "I know," he exhaled, "but I can't help myself. This is the first time in my entire career. I'll still blame myself. I can't do anything about it." "That's wrong, Rob." She placed her hand on his. "You just have to accept that you can't always save a patient." "Not always. Many doctors face this, I agree. It takes time to get through it, to come to terms, to accept. But you have to keep working. While you're moping here, people still need you. That's the main thing." "When was the last time you even took a vacation?" "What does that matter?" Davis asked indifferently. "It matters a lot," Eleanor almost shouted, frowning. "Take at least a week off. You really need it right now. Pull yourself together. I can't let you fall into a depression. It will affect your work, and God forbid you might even leave the profession. That happens too." "Never," Robert objected energetically. "Perhaps you're right. I'll go to the mountains. I always recover quickly there." In his youth, Davis loved hiking. Perhaps it was the only thing he looked forward to on weekends. Alone with nature, he quickly restored his strength and peace of mind. Eleanor didn't just suggest a vacation out of the blue. She knew exactly what he would do. "All right, starting tomorrow, you're off. I'll expect you back at work on the 3rd. Go home now, rest." "What about the relatives?" "I'll talk to them myself. It's a delicate matter. You understand." And he was a difficult person. "We're trying to reach his wife now, but her phone is silent. As far as I know, she's away right now. My God, I can't imagine how she'll react when she finds out her husband is gone." "Don't think about that now." "All right, let me call you a cab. You shouldn't drive in this state." The week flew by unnoticed. Robert had almost fully recovered his emotional state. The beneficial solitude in the mountains had a healing effect on him. Davis had his own roots that few people knew about. When he returned from the hike, the heavy thoughts about what had happened had almost left him. The next day he went to work. No operations were scheduled for that day. He saw a few scheduled patients and spent most of the day in his office. Around 5, Dr. Black called him in. Davis was contemplating death. Why? Why are some people destined for a happy fate, while others are forced to fight for the right to live? Why did I choose this profession? Am I so arrogant that I dared to take upon myself the right to fight death? I'm just a human being. No, I can't think like that. If it weren't for people like me, chaos would reign in the world. Maybe Eleanor is right? I shouldn't blame myself for the inevitable. It's impossible to save everyone. What's the point of giving up now? I can save thousands more lives. Davis stopped in front of Dr. Black's office door. For some reason, he was afraid to go in. He had a bad feeling. "Dr. Black?" He peered inside. "You called for me?" "Yes, come in." Eleanor was sitting at her desk. She looked tired. Her usual confidence had left her face. Instead of a strong woman, Davis saw before him a defenseless girl who had recently been crying. The chief physician's eyes were red-rimmed. "What happened?" he asked with concern. "Robert," she sighed. "I had a very difficult conversation this morning. Mr. Miller's wife came to see me." The name struck a painful chord. he said, surprised. He died a week ago. She was out of the country. I had to listen to a lot. Why didn't you call me earlier? I wanted to talk to her myself first, to understand how she would react to the news of her husband's death. But this woman, in short, she's demanding that I fire you. On what grounds? Davis exclaimed, indignant. You yourself said that I wasn't to blame for what happened. We all understand that, Rob. But what? But I want to talk to her myself. How can I find her? It's pointless. You see, this Mr. Miller was a difficult man. His wife will do everything to ruin your career. I explained everything to her, but this woman, she is convinced that he could have been saved. You know yourself how difficult it is to prove otherwise in such situations. Nonsense. There was no medical error. I did everything possible. The man had an advanced condition. If he had sought help earlier, perhaps it could have been fixed. Now listen, I'm on your side. But you know yourself, might makes right. This woman has connections at the Ministry of Health. She is firmly determined to see this through. If I don't fire you now, heads will roll, including mine. I can't risk that. You know I'll go to court. It's simply ridiculous to accuse me of incompetence when they themselves let it get to this state. That's your right. But right now, I'm sorry, but I'll have to give in to her. I can't do otherwise, Rob. Understand my position, too. Robert's face twisted into a grim smirk. What difference does it make where her connections are? The truth is on our side. Alas, we live in a bureaucratic world. Here, the one who gets to the lawyers first is right. So what's the problem? I'll hire a lawyer right now. Listen to me, Robert. I know from experience that the chances will be slim. It's your right to sue for wrongful dismissal. But for now, you need to do as I say. We don't need trouble. To hell with all of you. Do what you want. I'm free. Yes. Eleanor lowered her eyes. You can go. Don't come into work starting tomorrow. I'm very sorry. I hope things work out. Robert left the office, slamming the door. What did they think they were doing? This was crossing all boundaries. I dedicated so many years to this work, only for some idiot to just come and ruin everything. Yes, of course, I'll go to court. I don't care who she has connections with. I know I'm not to blame. Let them all go to hell, a bunch of idiots. Because of one death that was inevitable, hundreds more that could have been avoided might happen. Robert didn't even bother to collect his things. He just left the office without saying anything to anyone. The news of the leading surgeon's dismissal would likely cause a huge stir. Despite the ill-wishers, most of the staff loved Davis. They sincerely respected him. Robert didn't want to explain anything to anyone. He said goodbye to his colleagues and the girls at the reception desk as usual, got into his parked car, and took a deep breath. He had a strong urge to smoke. Davis hadn't smoked for about 7 years. He had quit the habit when he broke up with Eleanor. But now, from somewhere in his subconscious, came a clear, persistent demand. Robert drove out of the parking lot and headed for the nearest kiosk. Buying a pack, he got back into the car and took a drag with pleasure. For a moment, the longed-for calm came, but with each drag, it receded further and further. Flicking the cigarette butt, Robert drove home. His head was in complete disarray. He drove mechanically, moving in the obedient flow of cars. Need to buy some groceries at least, he said aloud. The supermarket was a couple of steps from his house. Robert parked by the entrance and decided to walk to the store. He just walked, seeing no one around. In the supermarket, Davis mechanically filled the cart without even looking closely at the products. When it turned out at the checkout that he had gathered 4 full bags of groceries, he was very surprised. But he wasn't going to put them back, was he? Robert slowly left the store and slowly trudged home. "Young man," a voice came from somewhere far away. Davis didn't immediately realize he was being addressed. He hadn't been young for a long time. "Young man," the call repeated. This time Robert turned his head towards the source of the sound. A couple of steps away from him stood a woman in worn clothes, holding the hand of a girl about 6 years old. "I apologize for bothering you. How can I help?" Robert replied. The heavy bags cut painfully into his palms. The only thing he wanted right now was to get home quickly and get rid of this burden. "Could you give us a little money?" My daughter is very hungry." In confirmation of her words, the girl squeaked something. From her appearance, it was clear that the child was undernourished. The little girl was very thin, and there were shadows under her eyes. The mother looked no better. Robert knew that beggars often played on pity, pretending to be unfortunate. He glanced at this pair. Either the mother and daughter were very good actors, or they were truly in need of help. He didn't want to give money, and he didn't have any cash on him anyway. "I don't have any money," he said dryly. "But maybe groceries would work for you? I picked up so much, and they're no use to me alone." The woman's eyes lit up. Robert thought. Doesn't look like she's lying. He held out 2 heavy bags to the stranger. "Here, take these. I honestly don't remember what's in them, but in any case, you'll find something. When you get home now, you can cook." "Thank you so much." Tears welled up in the woman's eyes. "I don't even know how to thank you. People have become so cruel now they don't care about other people's troubles. My pride wouldn't let me beg. But what can you do? I feel sorry for my daughter. I don't care about myself." "What happened to you?" Robert asked unexpectedly. He hadn't intended to talk to a vagrant, but something inside him squeezed his heart painfully. He couldn't pass by someone else's sorrow. "Why do you want to know?" The woman became flustered. "Life happened to us. I can't tell you everything. Thank you for the groceries. We should go." "Wait!" Robert suddenly shouted after the departing woman. "I can see that things are far from all right with you. If there's anything I can do to help, tell me. I'm in a difficult situation myself right now. I know what it's like when life doesn't go according to plan. How can I ask a stranger for something?" The woman sighed resignedly. "Groceries are one thing, although even that is so much. Wait a minute. First, I offered help myself. That's different. Second, if you're truly in trouble, don't refuse. In a couple of words, in brief. Lily and I have nowhere to go. We've been living on the street for the 2nd week." The woman shifted from foot to foot. Robert looked over the mother and daughter again. The woman didn't look like she drank, was dressed in dirty but quite decent clothes, and she spoke well, didn't look like someone who had given up. The girl was very quiet, scared, with huge eyes. "Right." Davis looked around. "Let's do this. I live here, in the next building, just a couple of steps away. I live with my mother, but she's at the dacha right now. There's a spare room. We'll come now, and you can tell me everything. You can stay with me for a while until you figure something out." "You?" The woman's eyes widened. The offer somewhat puzzled her. "You don't know us at all, and we don't know you. See? We're in the same position, essentially. Don't be scared. There's a concierge in the building. She won't keep quiet if anything happens. Don't be afraid. Please, I just can't leave you and your daughter on the street now. Haven't had anything hot to eat for several days, I bet. And you never know what else. I don't even know." The woman was still flustered. "We don't really have any choice." "There's always a choice. I'm not taking you prisoner. You'll eat, you'll drink, get your clothes sorted out. You can leave afterwards, but at least my conscience will be clear." "All right," the woman agreed with hesitation, but still agreed. "My name is Sarah, by the way, and my daughter is Lily." "Robert Davis," the man introduced himself. "You can just call me Rob." Robert was busy in the kitchen while Sarah and her daughter were getting themselves sorted out in the bathroom. Mrs. Evelyn Roberts, Robert's mother, rarely stayed in the city in the summer. She preferred to spend time at the dacha. Her son hadn't even had time to tell her anything. "I wonder what Mom would say if she were home now," Davis thought. "Would she be angry?" "No, I think the opposite. She'd be worried herself right now. She's not the kind of person to abandon someone in need, even strangers." Davis had already managed to prepare a stew when the guests finally appeared in the kitchen. Sarah had put on clothes for herself and her daughter that Robert had prepared for them, old t-shirts and sweatpants. When Davis saw the transformed ladies, he was very surprised. Sarah looked significantly younger than he had thought when he met her. She was a rather young woman, around 30, with long blonde hair and huge gray eyes. The girl was her exact miniature copy. From their appearance, one could only say that they hadn't eaten for a long time. Both were very thin. Robert didn't delay and invited both to the table. "Well then," he said awkwardly, "enjoy your meal. I hope my cooking doesn't disappoint you. I've prepared a stew. Just eat slowly, or your stomachs might hurt." Sarah and Lily began their meal. The girl was shy at first, but her mother reassured her. When dinner was finished, Robert served tea. Sarah gradually came back to herself. A blush even appeared on her cheeks. "Lily," Robert said to the girl, "maybe you want to watch cartoons?" "Yes," the girl answered hesitantly and looked at her mother. She nodded. Davis turned on the TV in the living room and sat the little girl on the sofa. When he and Sarah were left alone in the kitchen, he started asking questions. "Tell me, Sarah, what happened to you?" Sarah was silent for a long time, gathering her thoughts. Finally, she decided, "I couldn't bear it any longer. I just took Lily, some money, and just left. Back then, it didn't matter at all where to go. I just wanted to leave that terrible place." Terrible place? In Robert's imagination, some kind of prison immediately came to mind. "Yes, my home. You understand? My husband isn't just a tyrant. He's worse. But Lily and I have no one but him. I endured his abuse for a very long time, but I reached my limit." The woman burst into tears. "Was it really that bad? Did he hit you?" Sarah nodded. Another couple of minutes passed before she could continue. "I married Michael very young. I wasn't even 20 yet. My parents died in an accident. I was left completely alone then, and Michael seemed like a real hero. He courted me beautifully, doted on me. Only 3 months had passed since we met, and he took me to the registry office. I saw no reason to refuse because back then I thought I loved him. We lived well. My husband worked at a bank, earned well, but he didn't allow me to work. In his opinion, a wife should take care of the household and children. I didn't particularly protest, although even then I should have wondered what kind of person he was. Until Lily was born, he didn't allow himself anything like that. Sometimes, of course, he showed his temper, argued. He didn't let me go anywhere outside the house. I had to stop communicating with all my friends. For 5 years I couldn't get pregnant. This drove Michael crazy. He accused me of infertility, female inadequacy, and then suddenly I found out that I would become a mother. I don't even know how it happened. I didn't get any special checkups. God just sent a child. Throughout the entire pregnancy, Michael literally glowed with happiness. He really wanted a son. At the same time, he didn't allow me to find out the child's sex in advance. He just believed. That was all. And then a girl was born. Yes, Robert sighed. Yes, Sarah nodded. And from that moment on, it was as if he was a different person. He literally hated me and Lily. He never loved her, but tried not to show it openly, especially to his parents and friends. No, he bought her everything, didn't deny her anything, but didn't feel paternal affection. And his attitude towards me changed completely. If before Michael could just lose his temper, be rude, ignore me for half a day, after Lily was born, he often started hitting me. It started with slaps. If I raised my voice, such punishment immediately followed. I endured it. Well, and then it got worse. One day Michael came home drunk. I went into the bedroom to avoid getting in his way. When he came in, I pretended to be asleep, but apparently that didn't suit him. He started waking me up, beat me very badly. It was simply unbearable pain. I screamed. Lily woke up. Even the neighbors were knocking on the door. There was blood everywhere. But Michael, he has connections everywhere. He quickly hushed it up, threatened to kill me if I reported it to the police. I was a fool. I shouldn't have listened to him then. I shouldn't have been afraid. And what was I supposed to say to the police? That my husband beats me? People live in such situations. As a result, this habit became systematic for my husband. He started getting drunk often after work, and this was inevitably followed by beatings. I had nowhere to go. I was afraid to go to the police. Did he hit you every day? No, not every day. When he came back sober, he pretended that nothing had happened, even tried to show some signs of affection, took me to different places. He also beat me in such a way that the marks were only on my body. He understood, you see, that a marked face would attract attention. It wasn't fitting for his status to have such a wife. His parents often came to visit, and our friends too. What about his parents? Didn't they even suspect? Of course they suspected. When I told my mother-in-law, she just laughed at me, told me not to dare slander her dear son. When I showed her the bruises, she said, "You're messing around with men God knows where. They'll give you bruises." And here I am, pretending to be a saint. But what men? I never had anyone but Michael, and my father-in-law. He even felt sorry for me, but said, "You're a wife, you have to endure it, that's all." Can you imagine? Sarah burst into tears. It was clear that the memories were causing her great pain. This went on for almost 6 years. I was just living in hell. Michael became more and more sophisticated. A real nightmare happened when Lily was taken by her grandparents. He kept me on a leash all weekend. I don't want to describe all the details to you. It went on endlessly. The last time he outdid himself. I needed to go to the hospital, but he ordered me not to go. When Michael saw that I was covered in blood, he finally took pity. They took me away. It turned out I had a miscarriage. I begged the doctor not to tell my husband about it. Seeing the bruises and abrasions on my body, the doctor said he would immediately contact the police. But I still insisted on keeping it a secret. I just said I had a bad fall from a stepladder at home. We were doing renovations in one of the rooms at the time. The doctor shook his head, but couldn't do anything without my consent. I would have, but he agreed not to inform Michael about the miscarriage. I just understood. If he found out, he would simply kill me. It wouldn't matter that he was the cause of what happened. When I was discharged from the hospital, he was already waiting for me at home, didn't even come to pick me up. Can you imagine? Most of all, I was afraid for Lily, but she, thank God, was living with her grandparents all this time and was having a good time. Is it appropriate to call it that? Michael went on a business trip. Usually he didn't travel like that, but there was some kind of conference or seminar. He had to go for 2 weeks. I understood then that this was my chance. I had to run without looking back. I simply couldn't live in constant fear and pain anymore. But where to go? He didn't give me money, only scraped together enough for groceries. But that amount quickly ran out. I packed my things as soon as he left, didn't tell anyone anything. It was dangerous, especially since I have no relatives or friends. I asked my father-in-law for a little money, supposedly to buy Lily some things. I think he understood everything. This man is the only one who tried to help me in any way. But he lived under his wife's thumb his whole life, was afraid to go against her will. Should I judge him? After all, I was in much the same position. And what did you do? Where did you go? That's just it, nowhere. I rented a cheap room in another district, far from the old apartment. I thought about getting a job, but I have Lily to look after, can't place her anywhere. Didn't have money for kindergarten or a nanny. The money ran out in 3 months, you see. If I were alone, I would have managed somehow. Found a small part-time job. I went to wash floors in the evenings. Robert looked at this fragile young woman. It was clear that she wasn't used to physical labor. He imagined how hard it must have been for her to decide on such low-paid work. I have neither education nor experience, you see. Where else could I go? Especially since I was very afraid that Michael would find us. Before marriage I was studying, but after my parents' death I dropped out. And Michael didn't allow me at all. Only home, the family hearth, damn him. As a result, I'm 31 now, a child to look after, a constant feeling of fear. All this can be solved. I understand you're scared and the circumstances are like this, but I can help. And how did you end up on the street? How long has this been going on? We lived in the room for 3 months. When the money ran out, I persuaded the landlady to let us stay on credit for some time, but at some point, her patience ran out, and we simply had to leave and go onto the street. At first, we were at the train station. I tried to get into a rehabilitation center, but I thought that Michael could easily find us that way. So we just wandered around. Had to leave my job. Had nowhere to leave Lily. And then I had to swallow my pride and start begging. I understood that this was the end, but there was still hope for a miracle. And here it happened. Sarah tried to smile but started crying again. Robert put his arm around her shoulders and tried to comfort her. Sarah, listen. I won't promise anything, but I think I can help. Stay with me for now. Mom will be back from the dacha soon, of course, but she's an understanding woman. Won't throw you out onto the street. I have a friend. He has a private clinic. Get you a job as an administrator there? It's not a great job, but you have to start somewhere. And then we'll see. Really? A mixture of joy and doubt was reflected in Sarah's huge eyes. I'll do everything around the house. I don't want you to think of me as a freeloader. What to do about your husband? You'll have to get a divorce. Since you have a young child, it will have to go through court. He'll take Lily. You understand, don't you, that there's little chance she'll be left with me? I have no job, no home, and he has money, an apartment, influence. Come on, everything can always be solved. I also have influential acquaintances. Among them are several good lawyers, even a judge and a couple of prosecutors. Do you work for the authorities? No, not even close. I'm a surgeon, or rather, I was, until today. How so? Sarah was surprised. I was fired today. A patient died on the operating table, and even though it wasn't my fault, his relatives are convinced otherwise. He was a difficult person. I don't even know what to do now. In any case, I won't let this go. But for now, I had to make concessions to the chief physician. I'll go to court. There's nothing else left. Now I need to recover. Robert and Sarah sat in the kitchen a little longer, talked, after which the woman went to sleep. Lily was already sleeping peacefully with the TV on. Sarah gently lifted the girl and carried her to the bedroom. "What are you saying?" Mrs. Evelyn Roberts' voice sounded extremely agitated. "What do you mean, fired? How dare they? You can't find a specialist like you anywhere. Figurative, hard to find. Mom, it's too long to explain all this over the phone. I don't want to." "Come then. You don't have anything to do right now anyway, and I actually need help here. I'm redoing the flower bed, and it's hard to dig by myself. Will you come?" Robert thought about Sarah and Lily. It was awkward to leave them. And in principle, it was probably dangerous to leave a stranger alone in the apartment. Her story, of course, didn't cause doubt. But anything can happen in life. To refuse, taking Sarah and the little girl with him, was also out of the question. "All right, I'll come then, closer to evening. Need to finish some other things." "Waiting, son. You haven't done anything foolish, have you?" "Mom, stop it. All right, see you." Robert hung up. He had just woken up. The conversation with his mother woke him up completely. "I'll have to go. All right. I'll hope for Sarah's decency. I feel like she's not the kind of person to repay kindness with treachery." Robert went into the kitchen. To his surprise, Sarah was already busy with household chores. She had already tidied up and prepared breakfast. A cup of coffee was steaming on the table. "I heard you wake up and decided to quickly make some coffee. Is it all right that I'm making myself at home?" "Of course," Robert smiled. "Make yourself at home. Honestly, I didn't expect breakfast. How else? I did this mechanically for so many years. And here, for the first time, with pleasure. I just don't know if you eat scrambled eggs and all that." Robert looked at the set table with surprise. Sarah had managed to prepare not only scrambled eggs. A huge pile of Serneke, cottage cheese pancakes, was steaming on the plate. He hadn't seen anything like it since childhood. "Wow! Serneke! I haven't eaten them in 100 years. And exactly like Dad used to make. I never saw Serneke like this from Mrs. Evelyn Roberts. It was his signature dish. After the divorce, Mom erased Dad from her life, and Serneke ended up on the forbidden list." Robert devoured the contents of the plates with appetite. "By the way, I also got the recipe from my father. Apparently, some men have the same weaknesses. Dad often made them, and then I learned." "What a coincidence," he inquired. "Has she been up long?" "I gave her a pencil and paper. She's drawing. My daughter really loves doing that." "Great." Sarah was genuinely happy. "Then we need to quickly buy her some art supplies. I'm going downtown now, so I'll look for something." "Great. Maybe you need something too? Can we go together?" Sarah was flustered. "I don't want to go out unnecessarily." "All right, I understand. It's okay. Just tell me what to buy. I'll bring it. As you can see, I don't have many women's things." "Nothing needed, thank you," the young woman replied modestly. "Well, see here." Robert shook his head. "You're being unnecessarily shy." "I'm not shy," Sarah blushed. "I don't even know what I need. You have such a house, it seems like everything is here." Sarah," Robert suddenly began, having finally decided to tell her about his departure. "Here's the thing. I'll need to leave for about 3 days. Can you manage here without me? I'll buy groceries. If you need anything, order delivery. I'll leave you my card." "How can that be?" Sarah was scared. "Are you really going to leave us alone in the apartment? You don't know me at all. What if something happens? Like a global flood?" "Go down to the concierge. She has the numbers for all emergency services. I'll tell the doorman that my sister has arrived with her niece, so they'll be aware. I won't even go out anywhere." "That's right. But can you take Lily out into the courtyard? The girl needs fresh air. Our courtyard is enclosed. There are no outsiders here. Go out through the back of the building. I'll show you everything. I'll just quickly go downtown and come back. We'll discuss everything. Okay?" Sarah stood by the stove, completely bewildered. She had not expected at all that this amazing man would show her such trust. Robert arrived in Colladino in the evening. The dacha settlement wasn't far from the city, but the roads were jammed with cars. His mother met him in the garden. The Davises' dacha was located in a picturesque spot, surrounded by forest on 2 sides. Robert loved these pines so much, the air filled with the scent of resin and pine needles. The vegetable garden occupied a small plot. Mrs. Evelyn Roberts's main pride was not the vegetable beds at all. Flower beds were laid out everywhere, and hundreds of shades were already in full bloom. Mrs. Evelyn Roberts knew some secret. That's what the neighbors thought, who gasped and sighed over her luxurious flower beds. But the woman herself claimed that her only fertilizer was love. Robert was talking to his mother. This woman had long since passed her 60s, however. This didn't prevent her from looking great at all and engaging in active pursuits. When his father left, this woman was left alone with a 7-year-old son. Of course, it was difficult, but it wasn't the exhausting work and daily worries that weighed heavily. On the contrary, physical labor helped Mrs. Evelyn Roberts not to think about her ex-husband. Arthur was dearly loved by her. Evelyn tried to please her husband in everything, managed the household, raised her son, rushed to work, and took care of herself. But one day, Rob had just started 1st grade then. Arthur came home from work and just started packing his things. Evelyn thought then that her husband was going on a business trip, but he took her hand and, looking her straight in the eye, informed her that he had fallen in love with someone else. What Evelyn heard seemed like a silly joke to her. Arthur was explaining something, but the words didn't even reach Evelyn. When the door closed behind her husband, she finally came to her senses. At first, she tried to get him back, even tracked down where Arthur was living now. She saw that woman. From the outside, the couple seemed happy. That's when Evelyn realized that her husband was gone for good. She didn't make a scene, but just erased him from her life. One day Arthur came to see his son. Then Evelyn told him everything she felt and asked him not to show up anymore. Since he had chosen another life, he should not remember the old one. Arthur understood everything. Robert never saw him again. When Arthur died, Robert was not informed about it. Davis didn't particularly grieve. He barely remembered Arthur. His mother convinced him that this man wasn't worthy of being called a father. "Rob!" Mrs. Evelyn Roberts exclaimed joyfully. "I'm so happy to see you. How are you? Let's go into the house quickly. You can tell me what happened." "Mom, honestly, I don't even want to explain all this. The situation is bad. I'm going to court now." Robert told his mother everything. The woman listened in silence, only occasionally shaking her head. How could Ellie allow something like that? "I just don't understand." Mom, don't worry about it. It's definitely not your problem. How can it not be mine? Mrs. Evelyn Roberts threw up her hands. You're my son. I know how hard you worked, and now the work of your entire life is simply being ruined. This isn't fair. What honor are you talking about? In this world, money and connections decide everything. If that's the case, then I won't give up either. And I have those connections. I've saved the lives of more than one influential person. I think many will gladly agree to help me. That's right. All right, you'll rest a little now, and then, you see, you'll get back to work with renewed strength. If only you would sort out your personal life. Mom! Robert looked at her sternly. How many times have we talked about this? Family isn't for me. And the fact that I'm unemployed now isn't a reason to think otherwise. It's temporary. I just want grandchildren, his mother sighed. I'm not young anymore. Time is passing, and I still won't get to hold a grandchild. Don't be sad, Robert hugged Mrs. Evelyn Roberts. Grandchildren aren't everything. Look how well I've done. This year the flower beds are beyond all praise. The neighbors are probably all envious. Oh, don't say that. I want to. On that plot over there, the woman gestured somewhere in an indefinite direction. Will you help me dig there a little? Just need to dismantle the old shed, otherwise it spoils the whole view. That's why I came, Robert laughed. Well, give me a crowbar and a shovel. I'll start right now. Are you crazy? It's already night. We'll start in the morning. Let's go. I'll feed you some pies for now, your favorites, with green onions. They settled down in the summer kitchen. Robert listened to the chirping of the crickets and admired the sunset sky. It's nice here, he thought. Maybe give up everything. Move to the countryside. Take up farming. I've saved enough money. What do I need so much for, alone? And medicine. What can you do if what comes first isn't moral principles, but material ones? I'll never accept that. Mom, he suddenly said. What is it, son? Mrs. Evelyn Roberts seemed to have already dozed off. I need to tell you something. Right. His mother squinted. I don't like your tone. Well, Robert began. I was coming back from work yesterday, completely broken, and met a woman with a child. They were standing there looking so lost, hungry. In short, I gave them 2 bags of groceries. That's right, son. There's nothing wrong with that. A good deed. That's not all. They'll stay with us for now. What? His mother looked at Robert, not understanding. What do you mean, stay? Mom, Sarah, and Lily are in a very difficult situation. They have nowhere to go. I simply couldn't leave them in trouble. Robert retold everything Sarah had told him to his mother. The woman just gasped. Rob! But still, how could you leave complete strangers alone in the apartment? We have valuables, electronics there. What electronics, Mom? Robert threw up his hands. They won't take anything. The girls are scared to death. All they need right now is a warm place. I want to help Sarah get a job. I don't know why, but she inspired my trust. Uh-huh. Think about it yourself. How many people would agree to let her into their home like that? A questionable scheme. You could wait like that your whole life. No, she's telling the truth. If only you could see them. Lily is practically transparent. A girl her age needs to eat well. If I can help them, then it's my duty. I've saved people my whole life with my hands. Why can't I do it with my heart? Mrs. Evelyn Roberts looked at her son for a long time. Doubt was visible in her eyes, but she was still proud that she had raised such a person. Trust, but verify, she finally said. When you come back, try to find out something about this woman. 3 days flew by unnoticed. Davis did all the necessary work at the dacha and was preparing to go back to the city. Mrs. Evelyn Roberts asked to go with him, but the man refused. He needed to prepare Sarah for his mother's arrival. At the same time, he wanted to make sure that the woman had met his expectations. Mom, let me bring them here instead. Lily will really like it here. And Sarah, she's not afraid of physical work, will help you around the house. Oh, son, I don't even know. All right, you've always been a smart boy. I hope you haven't made a mistake this time. Bring them. We'll see what kind of people they are. Glad Mom gave in, Robert thought. This woman was hard to argue with, but no matter what, she was a good person. Having packed, he went home. The road didn't take long. Few people returned to the city on weekdays. When Robert drove up to the house, he looked at the windows for a long time. Nothing indicated the presence of occupants in the apartment. He was even scared for a moment. Had Sarah run away? The door was locked from the inside. He rang the doorbell. A few seconds later, Sarah opened it. She seemed happy. The look of fear had disappeared from her face. Her cheeks no longer seemed sunken. "Here I am," Robert announced and entered the apartment. "How are you doing?" Lily ran out to meet him. She stopped at the threshold and looked at Robert with interest with her huge eyes. "Everything's fine," Sarah smiled. "And we're drawing. Thank you so much for the paints. I've never seen Lily so happy." "Is that so? Then show me your masterpieces. I'll go make some tea for now." "Let me do it," Sarah offered. "By the way, I've already made lunch." "Wow!" Robert exclaimed with admiration, sniffing the air. "And I smell something so delicious." Then quickly to the kitchen, despite the early breakfast, "I won't refuse a treat." Lily ran off into the room and soon returned, carrying a whole stack of drawings. While Sarah was setting the table, the girl was showing off her masterpieces to Robert. For a 6-year-old child, Lily drew quite well. Robert was even surprised. "Sarah, I think you should enroll the girl in art school. She has obvious talent." "Really? I would gladly, but—" Robert didn't let her finish. He looked at the girl seriously. "Lily, tell me, do you want to learn to draw like real artists?" "Yes," the girl replied uncertainly and looked at her mother. She nodded. "Then I suggest you enroll in a school, a special place where they teach drawing. If you're interested in it, then we can go and enroll tomorrow." Lily just looked at her mother, without saying anything. The girl's eyes lit up. It was clear that Robert's offer interested her. "But it's probably very expensive." Sarah was flustered. "Right. I don't want to hear that again. Expensive or not expensive. What difference does it make if a child has talent? It's worth developing it so you don't blame yourself later. I'll pay for everything. You shouldn't worry about it. If that's uncomfortable for you, Sarah, let's agree on this. When you get back on your feet, you can pay me back later, okay?" "Is that possible?" The woman was surprised. "Everything is possible. I live alone. I have nowhere to put my money, so I can afford to spend it on something useful." After lunch, Robert thanked Sarah for the delicious food. He noted to himself that the young woman cooked very well. "I'm going to take a nap. I'm tired from the journey, and I also got up very early. By the way, if you want, we can go to the dacha together in a few days. You'll like it there." "It probably won't be very convenient." Sarah hesitated. "Especially since your mother is there. Mom already knows. I told her everything." "Seriously? And how did she react?" "She probably got angry that you brought beggars into the house." "First of all, not beggars, but people who are in trouble. That's a huge difference. Second, she did get angry, of course, but she got over it quickly. She understands everything, you see, after all. She was the one who raised me, so I got many character traits from her. She never went out into nature. Only once did we all go to the sea together. But your daughter was still a very little girl then. Doesn't remember anything. All the more reason to go. All right, I'll rest, and then we can figure something out." Robert retired to the bedroom. He fell asleep almost immediately. The emotional strain took its toll. When the man woke up, the apartment was very quiet. Sarah and Lily were also resting. He quietly left the bedroom. Passing by the living room, he saw Sarah sitting with her back to him out of the corner of his eye. She was quietly sobbing, discreetly dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief. Robert coughed. Sarah flinched and turned around, immediately wiping away tears with the sleeve of her sweatshirt. "Sorry. I didn't mean to." "No, it's fine. I was just thinking." "Why are you crying? What do you have there?" "It's a photo of my parents." Sarah handed Robert an old, faded photograph. "It's all I have left of them. When I ran away from home, I only grabbed my documents and this photo." Robert carefully took the piece of glossy cardboard offered to him. It depicted two happy people. The man was gently embracing the woman whose eyes sparkled with happiness. Robert's breath caught. "What is it?" Sarah became concerned, seeing that Robert's face had changed. These are your parents?" "Yes," the woman nodded. "And what were their names?" "Mom was Helen, and Dad was Arthur." "My God," Robert whispered and sank heavily onto the sofa. "Robert, are you all right? You've gone so pale. Let me get you some water." Without waiting for an answer, Sarah jumped up from the living room and a few seconds later brought a glass of water. Robert drank it down greedily. "Thank you," he mumbled. "You scared me so much. Is it your blood pressure?" My mother-in-law also used to turn pale suddenly and fall. She had low blood pressure. "No, Sarah, it's not my blood pressure. Wait, I need to process this information." "What information?" The woman was surprised. "Did my parents somehow upset you?" "Not just upset, Sarah," Robert said. "You'll understand everything in a moment." Robert abruptly stood up from the sofa and headed towards the large chest of drawers. He opened the bottom drawer and took out 2 heavy velvet photo albums from there. Such albums used to be very popular. In each, corners holding family snapshots on which precious moments of the past were forever frozen. Robert frantically flipped through the heavy cardboard pages with his fingers. What he needed didn't seem to appear. Mrs. Evelyn Roberts kept everything, but that picture, did she really throw it away? Among the empty pages, Robert found that picture. The photo was about 35 years old. That was the last time they went to the sea as a family. With a trembling hand, Robert picked up the corner of the black and white photograph. He looked at it for a long time. From the picture, a smiling little boy looked at him, with a sunburned nose smeared with sour cream. The boy was sitting on the lap of a man with a mustache. Slowly, Robert walked over to Sarah and handed her the photograph. The woman looked at the picture, not understanding. She knew this man with a mustache very well. His gaze only looked stern in photos. In life, her father was very kind and often laughed. "How can this be?" Sarah looked at Robert. "Where did you get a photo of my father? I don't understand. When was this?" "Almost 40 years ago. You weren't even born yet." Robert sighed. His father was also called Arthur. "It can't be." Sarah jumped up from the sofa. It was clear how tense her body became. "Things like this don't happen." "As you see, they do happen." Robert's gaze scanned the emptiness. The man couldn't gather his thoughts. "It's just a coincidence, it's a common name. And men often looked alike in old Soviet photos." "I understand. It's all the mustache." "Sarah," Robert stood up and took the young woman's hands. "You understand perfectly well that it's not about the mustache. Both your father and mine are the same person." The turmoil on the woman's face was difficult to describe. Emotions changed one after another. Finally, she couldn't bear it and started crying. Robert held her tightly to his chest and stroked her blonde hair for a long time. The next day, Robert took Sarah and Lily to the dacha. The newfound relatives somehow both became silent at once. It was hard to find words. "I'll tell Mom myself," Robert broke the silence. "Of course," Sarah nodded. "I wouldn't even have thought of telling her everything right away." They hadn't told Lily anything yet. For a child, the appearance of a biological uncle probably wouldn't be such a shock. But for now, Robert and Sarah decided not to rush. Too many things had happened in the last week. Mrs. Evelyn Roberts was waiting for them. Having finished all the household chores, she tidied up. When the whole group got out of the car, the woman looked at the guests with distrust. "Mom," Robert shouted to her happily, "I'm not alone, as I promised. Meet Sarah, Mrs. Evelyn Roberts, and this charming young lady is named Lily." "Hello," Sarah said modestly. Lily also squeaked something. Mrs. Evelyn Roberts's stern face broke into a smile at the sight of the girl. She loved children very much, couldn't resist their sincere simplicity. "Good day, girls. Glad to see you. Why are we standing here? Come into the house quickly. I'll make lunch now. You must be tired from the journey, I suppose. Hungry? I can help." Sarah said, encouraged. "Oh no, I can manage myself." "Mom, it's impolite to refuse, especially since Sarah cooks wonderfully. I was surprised by the sirniki myself." "Sirniki?" His mother became wary. Apparently, the mention of this dish stirred up some unpleasant memories in her soul. "Yes," Robert smiled. "You'll be surprised, but they are exactly like the ones Dad used to make." At the mention of Arthur, Mrs. Evelyn Roberts winced. So many years had passed, and she still couldn't forgive her ex-husband for the betrayal. For this proud woman, there was nothing worse than such an abandonment of the family. "Well, we won't make sirniki now," the woman replied casually. "If you really want to help, please come to the kitchen. And you, Rob, show the girl the garden for now." "Well, Lily," Robert winked at the little girl, "do you want to see the most beautiful flowers in the world?" "The most?" The girl's eyes widened. "They don't get any more beautiful. Let's go together." They went into the garden. Lily ran from one flower bed to another, breathing in the scent of the beautiful blossoms. "And there are berries there too," Robert shouted to the little girl. "Do you like berries? The raspberries are ripe." "I don't know." The girl shrugged uncertainly. "Don't tell me you've never eaten raspberries." "I have, but I definitely haven't tried ones like these." Robert walked up to the bushes and picked a handful of large red berries. She carefully took one berry and put it in her mouth. Her eyes immediately lit up with delight. "Delicious. Can I have another one? Of course, you can eat them all if you want. The whole garden is at your disposal." Lily laughed and ran towards the bushes. She was so happy that Robert involuntarily laughed. He settled into a deck chair and turned his face to the sun. "Lunch!" His mother's voice. Robert woke up from his doze. Lily had eaten her fill of berries. Her whole face was smeared with juice. "Goodness, look, you're all messy. Let's go quickly and wash up, or Mom will scold you." Lily obediently followed Robert. He turned on the garden hose. The girl held out her hands and began washing her face blissfully. She got completely soaked. When they came to the summer kitchen, Mrs. Evelyn Roberts and Sarah had already set the table. The women had made okroshka, cold soup. Steam rose from the boiled potatoes sprinkled with green onions, and next to it, on a large platter, lay a pile of appetizing fried chicken. "Wow," Robert exclaimed. "A real country feast." "And most importantly," Mrs. Evelyn Roberts remarked, "they did everything so quickly. Sarah has golden hands. You didn't lie when you said she cooks wonderfully. Thank you for bringing a helper." Robert noted to himself that Sarah had already turned into Sarah, affectionate. His mother didn't warm up to people so quickly. Apparently, this young woman had found a way to win the heart of this proud woman. Robert liked this very much, after all. A very serious conversation was still ahead. When lunch was finished, Lily was carried into the house. The little girl had dozed off right on the bench. Mrs. Evelyn Roberts took Sarah into the garden to show off her pets, figurative, her plants, she flowers. Robert followed them. When the tour of the hostess's domain, which delighted Sarah completely, was finished, everyone settled down in the gazebo for conversation. Sarah, not used to so much fresh air, started to doze off. Robert escorted her into the house and placed her next to the sleeping Lily. Returning to the garden, he sat down next to his mother. "Mommy," Robert began gently. "Well, what do you think of the girls?" "Wonderful," Mrs. Evelyn Roberts exclaimed. "Honestly, I didn't expect this. I thought you'd bring some drunkard, covered in bruises. And here is such a decent young woman, and her daughter is simply charming. Quiet, surprised by everything. It's clear the child hasn't been particularly spoiled. Yes, if only you had a wife like that, and with a child right away. I would accept her as my own granddaughter. That's what I wanted to talk about." "Rob?" His mother looked at him in surprise. "Are you saying you've fallen in love with Sarah? Only a week has passed. I was just joking." "I have fallen in love, Mom, but not in the way you imagine." "How so?" Mrs. Evelyn Roberts looked at him, not understanding. "Can you love in some other way? I brought something. You have to look at it." With these words, Robert took an envelope from his pocket. He carefully took out his photograph from it. "Here, look. You remember, don't you? Mrs. Evelyn Roberts took the card offered to her. She took a deep breath. Where did you dig this up? I thought I had thrown away all of Arthur's pictures. I kept it myself. After all, he's not just your husband, but also my father. Ex-husband, the woman countered. Yes, but not an ex-father, Robert objected. Mom, I know this conversation isn't particularly pleasant for you. Dad hurt you deeply, and you never managed to forgive him. But surely you must have found out how he lived. I'll never believe that your female curiosity didn't overcome your pride. You're right, Rob, his mother sighed deeply. However things were, I always loved your father. He hurt me badly, and perhaps I was wrong that I didn't allow you to communicate. And yet he suffered greatly. I didn't even accept money from him, although life wasn't particularly easy for me. Pride was to blame for everything. You can't get rid of it. I know that he found happiness with his Helen. There was nothing left for me but to accept it. What was the point of making scenes, trying to get him back with threats or deceit? We wouldn't have built happiness on that anyway. And then he had a daughter. All the more reason for me to interfere with them? So I forgot, and instilled the same in you. And then, the accident. I didn't even tell you, you see. Arthur and his wife were returning from some celebration. Their neighbor told me about it. I did go to the funeral. You didn't even tell me? What was there to tell? How a drunk man in a Volga car crashed into them? There's no point discussing it now. I made many mistakes. But I had the right to know. He was still my father. Arthur died on the spot, Mrs. Evelyn Roberts continued, sighing. And they tried to resuscitate Helen, but nothing worked. She was operated on at your hospital, by the way, but you were just starting work then. I don't even know who the surgeon was. She didn't survive. They had a daughter left behind. I don't even know where she is now. She's about 10 years younger than you. I only saw her briefly at the funeral. A blonde like that, ash blonde, just like your Sarah, very similar. Mom, Robert gathered his thoughts. Sarah is my sister. What? Mrs. Evelyn Roberts tensed up completely from surprise. It can't be. She is similar, of course, but you shouldn't draw such a conclusion based only on my story. Where did you get that idea from? Robert took a second photograph from the envelope and gave it to his mother. I saw this picture in Sarah's hands when I came home. These are her parents. I was paralyzed at first when I saw Dad, and then I showed her that picture. Are you saying that? Yes, there can be no doubt. Sarah is Dad's daughter from his second marriage. Therefore, she is my sister. But this is simply incredible. Can you imagine how small the chances were for you to meet, especially under such circumstances that you told me about? There are no accidents, Mommy. Robert hugged her. Apparently, someone from above decided that relatives should be together. Enough suffering for them, now everything will be all right. With Lily, you want to hold a grandchild, don't you? Granddaughter, Mom, granddaughter. Everything you wanted. But no need to wake her, there's plenty of time. Mrs. Evelyn Roberts hugged her son and looked at the windows of her old dacha, at the room where the mother and daughter were now sleeping peacefully. A blissful smile played on her face.